Hello again. Most Londoners who heard recently that Sadiq Khan was planning to start building tower blocks on London's Green Belt will not have been in the least surprised. This is merely an acceleration of what has now been going on for over a decade. On every spare piece of land, blocks of flats are being erected, 20, 30 or 40 stories high. These have the effect of destroying the individual character of any neighbourhood and making them all look identical and thoroughly international. The thumbnail to this video shows the town of South Woolwich. The small brick buildings one sees are the town as it was until a few years ago, as it had been since the 19th century, with old buildings and a distinctive feel to it. Towering above it now are huge blocks of flats. These could be in Shanghai, Islamabad or Abu Dhabi. This is the imposition of an anonymous international flavour on a London district, a process which is being repeated all over London. I thought that it might be interesting to think back a little and see how we reached this situation. I want to think back not to the Victorian era or the war or the 1950s or anything, but merely to London in 1990. That's 35 years ago. The capital was at that time a fairly pleasant and uncrowded place to live. Population of London then had been falling for years and stood at fewer than 7 million. Tower blocks were being dynamited, and this was done during festivals because everybody hated the things. All over Hackney and other inner city areas, the tower blocks were coming down and being replaced by houses. Much more pleasant. There was, after all, plenty of room. Today, the official population of London is almost 10 million, but everybody knows that's an underestimate and that in reality there are more than 10 million people living in the city. In other words, the population has increased by over 50% in 35 years, and there are simply not enough places to live. That is why tower blocks have returned, and everybody seems to have forgotten why we were demolishing them in the 80s and 90s. There is no room for any other type of housing. Every square foot is needed to house people. What has caused this population explosion? Well, only a third of the people in London now are white British. 2/3 of those living in the capital are foreigners and immigrants. That is why the city is so crowded, and that is why tower blocks are being erected everywhere to try and house the soaring population of immigrants. That's why the Mayor of London is now turning his attention to the Green Belt. That's green land that surrounds built-up areas, and he wants to concrete over it and put up more tower blocks. There was once a city called London, which had a distinct character and was divided up into different districts, which each had their particular feel to them. Hampstead and Hackney, Bermondsey and Westminster, Woolwich and Enfield. That's all finished now. The future will consist of multiple skyscraper blocks of flats, indistinguishable from those in any other part of the world, and this will continue until all that made London unique has been obliterated. The only thing to do now is retreat and form a stronghold in a part of the country far from this awful sight.